If you're into witch stories, dark spells, and chilling encounters with the supernatural, stick around. Today, I'm going to share terrifying accounts from people who crossed paths with entities they should have never seen or summoned. Like the story you're about to hear, where a chance encounter on a quiet street revealed a curse powerful enough to destroy an entire family, and a strange discovery years later proved it was anything but coincidence. But before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of our spine-chilling stories. I'll never forget the day my ex's uncle told me about the woman on the roof. And I don't mean some ordinary woman. This was something that shouldn't exist, something that defied every explanation. The worst part? She was staring right at him. This all went down in Mexico, in a dusty little town just outside Tijuana, where the desert meets the shadows. Her uncle worked the night shift, fixing up old cars in the family's auto shop. That night he was alone, just him, the radio, and the wind rattling the windows. Then he heard it, a noise on the roof. He figured it was a cat, some stray animal, until the noise turned into footsteps, human footsteps. He looked up, and through the grimy window he saw a crouched figure perched on the edge of the roof. A woman, but not like any woman he'd ever seen. Her skin was pale, almost gray, and her eyes, God, her eyes, glowed in the dark like two burning coals. She moved wrong, like her bones were broken and then put back together all out of place. The uncle froze. The thing smiled, revealing teeth too sharp, too numerous, and then it vanished. He swore he hadn't been drinking, swore he wasn't losing his mind, but his family already had worse stories than this. Years later, my ex and her friend took a trip to Tijuana, just to sightsee, hit the tourist spots. That's when an old woman approached them in the market. She was dressed all in black, a shawl covering half her face. Without a word, she grabbed my ex's hand and turned her palm up. Her friend laughed it off, thinking the old lady was just some street fortune teller trying to make a buck. But then the woman spoke, her voice echoing like it came from somewhere far away. "Your family carries a curse. The woman on the roof, she doesn't forget." My ex yanked her hand back. The old woman melted into the crowd like she'd never been there. They laughed it off, even joked about the uncle's story. Coincidence, right? Then my ex's mom got involved. She met a guy in Tijuana, a trucker, Mexican, the whole deal. She fell hard, left everything behind in Texas, and moved in with him. 3 months later, her car veered off the road on a deserted stretch of highway. No one knows how, no one knows why. The car flipped 6 times before it stopped. She survived, but she was almost completely paralyzed. Just her eyes and one finger on her left hand still worked. When the uncle went to help bring her things back to Texas, he found something hidden in a shoebox, a piece of dried, leathery skin with a face molded into it, the face of that woman from the roof. He almost threw it away. But then he noticed the eyes were open and smiling. After that, I moved to a small border town in Texas. Sometimes when the sky darkens, I look out at the desert and think about the stories I've heard. Witches that turn into fireballs, that shift into birds, that haunt families for generations. And one night I saw something. It wasn't a bird. It burned in the air like a distant beacon hovering in the middle of the sky, and then it looked at me. I grabbed my phone. But when I looked up again, nothing. Just the empty sky, the hot Texas wind, and the heavy silence of the desert. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? Hell, I wasn't even sure what I'd seen. But then I remembered the uncle's story, that dried skin with the witch's face. And one thing became clear. That curse wasn't over. It was just waiting. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my ex. Her mom, the one who'd been paralyzed, had started talking. After years of silence, she woke up screaming in the middle of the night, saying, "She's back." When they asked who, she just cried and repeated, "The woman on the roof. She's come to collect." That same day, the friend who'd gone to Tijuana with my ex disappeared. No answer on her phone, no sign of her at home. They found her car abandoned at a gas station near the border, the driver's door wide open, the radio still playing. On the back seat, a dark stain like someone had sat there with wet clothes, but when they touched it, it was dry and warm. That's when I decided to dig deeper. I asked my ex's uncle if he still had that piece of skin. He said he'd thrown it in the fire, but it didn't burn. It just melted like wax, and the next day it was whole again, right where he'd left it. He buried it deep in the desert, far from town, but every time it rained, the ground above it would sink like something underneath was breathing. I'm not the type to chase mysteries, but this time, I needed answers. I tracked down an old man who lived on the border, a Mexican guy everyone said knew about these things. When I told him the story, he flipped a beer bottle upside down on the table and said, "Bruja. Not a ghost, not a demon. Old thing, older than the priests, older than the towns. They pick a family, and they don't let go." I asked how to break the curse. He laughed and said there wasn't a way. Either you run to another country or you learn to live with her eyes on you. On the drive home, the sky was clear. No fireballs, no witches. But I knew she was there. Sometimes I'd catch the smell of burning flesh out of nowhere. Other times I'd hear footsteps on the roof, even though I lived in an apartment. Then one night I woke up to the sound of nails scratching at my window. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just lay there, pretending to sleep, while the air grew heavy, like something was tasting my fear. The next morning, there was a burned handprint on the glass. Now I wonder, did the witch come from my ex's family? Or has she already chosen a new one? Creepy. What did you think of this story? On a scale from 0 to 10, how would you rate it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Stories like this prove that some curses can haunt families for generations. But sometimes, you don't need to be born into a curse to have your life torn apart. The next story is about Melissa, a woman who thought she could toy with the forces of the occult and paid a price she never could have imagined. I never should have accepted that friend request on Facebook. That's how it all started. I was 16, a junior in high school, dating Sarah. It was one of those easy, no-drama high school relationships. Nothing special. Then Lily showed up. She was new to our school, but not the kind of new kid who blends into the background. She had this way of looking at you like she could see straight through your soul, and a smile that looking back wasn't exactly human. We didn't talk much, but one day she sent me a friend request. I accepted without thinking twice. I mean, she was just another classmate, right? Wrong. Soon after, Lily started posting some seriously weird stuff. Not just memes or party pics. Long, cryptic posts filled with strange symbols and layers of hidden meaning. Then, out of nowhere, she started tagging me in things. Posts about toxic relationships, about how some people trap you without you even realizing it. I didn't want to admit it, but it got to me. I started questioning everything with Sarah. Little fights turned into big arguments. Arguments turned into silence. And through it all, Lily was always there. With a comment, a message, "You deserve better." Until one day I broke up with Sarah. It wasn't dramatic. It was almost like I was following a script Lily had written. And then, before I even knew how it happened, we were together. At first it seemed normal. Sure, Lily was intense, but I chalked it up to her being passionate. But then things started getting wrong. The nightmares were the first sign. I'd never had dreams so vivid. Always the same. A dark room, a figure in the corner, watching. I'd try to scream, but nothing would come out, and when I'd wake up, she'd be there. Lily. Sitting on the edge of the bed, looking at me with that smile. Another nightmare. She always knew. Then came the sleep paralysis. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, unable to move, with this crushing weight on my chest like something was sitting on me. And worse, sometimes I'd see things. Shadows crawling on the floor, figures twisting on the ceiling. But when I'd look again, there was nothing there. Lily said it was just stress, that I needed to relax, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I'd catch myself staring at her, and for a second, I'd see something different in her face. Something not human. Her eyes would go darker, her mouth too wide. But when I'd blink, she'd be normal again. And the weirdest part? I couldn't break up with her. Every time I thought about leaving, something would pull me back. It was like I didn't have a choice. I'd ask myself why I was so obsessed with someone who terrified me. Then, after almost 2 years, something snapped. One day I just woke up and said, "I'm done." Lily didn't cry or scream. She just looked at me with that smile and said, "You'll come back." I didn't, but the nightmares kept coming. And as I'd find out later, the worst was still ahead. After I broke up with Lily, I tried to move on. I met new people, moved to a different city, even started a serious relationship. My fiancée was nothing like her, sweet, stable, normal. For a while I thought the nightmares were over. Then one day her mom handed me a glass of water. It seemed like a simple gesture. But as she put it in my hand, she whispered something in Spanish and made the sign of the cross. "Here, mijo. It's for protection." I didn't ask questions, but that night, for the first time in years, I slept without dreaming about that figure in the corner of the room. That's when I realized something supernatural had happened to me. But I still didn't know the worst of it. My sister, Jess, had always been close to Lily. Even after the breakup, they stayed friends. When I moved out with some buddies, Jess decided to rent an apartment with Lily. I wasn't happy about it, but she insisted. "She's changed. You're being paranoid." 2 weeks later, Jess showed up at my door at 3 a.m., shaking. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in days. "There's something wrong in that apartment," she said, her voice hoarse from crying. She told me it started small. Doors slamming on their own, the smell of something burning for no reason. Whispers in the hallway when no one was there. Then it got worse. One night, she woke up and saw Lily standing in the middle of the room, facing away, talking to herself in a language that wasn't English. When Jess called out to her, Lily turned around. But it wasn't Lily. Her eyes were completely black, man. And her mouth, it was stretched too wide like it didn't fit her face. Jess bolted right then. The next day, she went back to grab her stuff while Lily was at work. That's when she found it. Under Lily's bed, there was a wooden box carved with strange symbols. Inside, cloth dolls, used black candles, and a photo of me wrapped in hair that had to be mine. When Jess confronted Lily over text, the reply came instantly. "You shouldn't have touched my things." Then the confession. "I made him love me, and he'll come back." Jess showed me the messages, the photos of the box. My blood ran cold when I saw the doll dressed like me, covered in pins. That's when I understood why I could never resist her, why I saw things that weren't there, why I felt like something was watching me, even after the breakup. Lily wasn't just a possessive girlfriend. She'd cursed me. And from the looks of it, the curse wasn't over yet. I grabbed the box and shoved it in my backpack. "I'll end this today," I told Jess. She tried to stop me, crying, saying Lily was dangerous, but I didn't listen. I stormed into her apartment. When she opened the door, it was like she already knew I was there. That wide, almost too wide smile. "So you found out," she said, like we were talking about the weather. I threw the box on the floor between us. "Get this crap off me, now." Lily laughed, a cold sound like it wasn't just coming from her throat. "That's not how it works, love. You belong to me." That's when I saw it. Her eyes turned completely black, and the shadow behind her. It didn't match the light in the hallway. It was bigger, denser, like something was breathing down my neck. I stumbled back. For the first time, I felt real fear. It wasn't just a feeling or a nightmare anymore. It was her. Lily raised her hand, and I felt something yanking me forward, like a rope was tied around my chest. "You'll never escape," she whispered. That's when the cross my fiancé's mom had given me burned against my skin. Lily screamed, like she'd been shocked. The pressure on my body vanished instantly. I didn't hesitate. I turned and ran. I heard her screaming something behind me, but I didn't look back. I only stopped when I was across town. The next day, I got rid of everything tied to her. Photos, gifts, even the messages. I took the box to a spiritual healer a friend recommended, and they burned it with herbs and coarse salt. The nightmares stopped. The sleep paralysis disappeared. But to this day, when the phone rings at night, my heart freezes. because I swear just before I answer, I hear a little laugh in my ear. It's the sound Lily made when she knew she'd gotten me. The curse is over, but I'll never forget, and I'll never let anyone into my life like that again. Scary, right? Messing with magic never comes without consequences, as you just saw. But there are times when you don't even have to go looking for the supernatural. It finds you, like in the next story, where a simple window became a portal to something that was never meant to be seen. I don't think I'll ever forget the sound of that laugh. It was like someone dragging their nails down a chalkboard, only worse. So much worse. And the worst part? My sister heard it too. I was about 8 years old, and my sister Lily was 2 years younger. Our house was old, the kind with creaky wooden floors that groaned on their own at night. We shared the same bedroom because, well, we were kids, and our parents thought it was safer that way. But safe was the last thing that room was. We loved building blanket forts. We'd grab every sheet, pillow, even chairs to hold up the structure, and we'd huddle inside, telling stories until we fell asleep. It was our little hideaway, our sanctuary, until that night. I remember it like it was yesterday. We were tucked inside our fort with just a tiny gap to see the bedroom window. The moon was full, so we could make out the shadows of the trees swaying outside. That's when something moved. It wasn't a branch. It wasn't an animal. It was a tall, way too thin silhouette, like someone had stretched a shadow in the air. Lily grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. "Did you see that?" she whispered, and all I could do was nod. Then came the sound. Laughter. High-pitched, raspy, like the person's throat was full of sand. It didn't come from outside. It didn't come from inside. It was like it echoed in the room itself, all around us. Lily buried her face in my shoulder, and I could feel my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. The laughter stopped as suddenly as it had started. We sat there, frozen, waiting. Nothing. Until... thump, the bed shook. Not a gentle tremor. It was like something had slammed into it from underneath. Lily let out a tiny scream, and I looked at the bedroom door. There was a white figure. It glowed in the dark, like those glow-in-the-dark stickers, but it had no face, just outlines like a person-shaped void. I couldn't breathe. The thing stood there motionless, and then, out of nowhere, it changed. From white to black. Pitch black, like it had sucked all the light out of the room. And then, it vanished. We didn't sleep that night. We just held each other, listening to every creak in the house. Lily kept twitching like something was poking her. "Stop moving," I whispered, but she just looked at me with wide eyes and pointed at the curtain. "There's someone there," she whimpered. There was no wind, nothing. But the curtain moved, like someone had just walked behind it. That's when we heard the footsteps, running. First inside the room like someone was circling our bed. Then in the hallway, a fast, heavy stomping that stopped abruptly. When the sun came up, we thought it had been a nightmare, until we looked in the mirror. Thin scratches on our arms like fingernails had grazed us, and bruises on our legs, dark and unexplained. Our mom went pale when she saw. She didn't say anything at first, but later, sitting in the kitchen, she muttered, "Someone did something to this house, or to us." After that day, we didn't share a room anymore. They moved Lily's bed to the far end of the hall, and I stayed in mine, alone. At first, it was a relief. No shadows, no laughter, no shaking beds. But 2 weeks later, it came back. And this time, it wasn't just after me. I was almost asleep when I heard a dragging sound from the hallway, like someone was pulling a heavy sack across the floor. My body locked up. My bedroom door was slightly open, and I swear I saw a hand, pale, too thin, gripping the doorknob for a second before it vanished. At that exact moment, Lily's scream echoed through the house. I jumped out of bed and ran to her room. When I threw open the door, she was curled up in the corner of her bed, shaking. "She's here," she cried. "She's calling me." "Who?" I asked. But Lily just pointed at the closet. The closet door was open just a crack, and inside, something was breathing. It wasn't human. It was more like a wet whistle, like someone was trying to suck air through a clogged straw. And then, a voice. "Come here, little girl." It was a woman's voice, but distorted, like it was coming from a radio with bad reception. Lily grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. "She talks like that every night," she whispered. I didn't know what to do. I tried to close the closet door, but it jammed like someone was holding it from the other side. And then, bang! Something hit it from inside so hard the door slammed shut on its own. We spent the rest of the night in the living room, all the lights on. Our parents woke up and pretended to believe it was just a nightmare, but I saw the look they exchanged. They knew. The next day, my mom brought in a woman to bless the house. She sprinkled holy water in the corners, burned some herbs, and murmured words under her breath. I didn't catch it all, but one phrase stuck. Someone let her in. I thought it would get better, but then the noises started coming from other places. One night, I heard someone walking in the attic, slow steps, like they were dragging their feet. Another time, I woke up to the feeling of someone breathing on my neck. When I turned, there was a figure standing in the corner of the room. It didn't move. It just watched. Lily started changing. She'd wake up with red, swollen eyes, like she'd been crying all night, but she'd say she didn't remember anything. One morning, I found her sitting on her bed staring at the wall. When I called her name, she turned slowly and said in a voice that wasn't hers, "Be careful what you look for." Then she acted like nothing had happened. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided I was going to figure out what it was, no matter how scared I was. But when I went to look it up on my dad's computer, the screen flickered and turned off. When it came back on, there was one word typed in the middle of a blank document: "Stop." And then the worst happened. One night I woke up to Lily shaking my shoulder. She was ice cold. "She showed me things," she said, her eyes filled with tears. "She said she's going to take me if we don't give her what she wants." "What does she want?" I asked. But Lily just shook her head, desperate. That's when the bedroom light exploded. In the dark, I heard the laughter again, and this time, it came from inside my ear. That's when I understood she was never leaving, unless we figured out how to send her back. The laughter buzzed inside my head like a trapped insect, and I screamed. Lily fell to the floor, covering her ears, and I pulled her close. The whole house felt alive, walls creaking, doors slamming on their own, a cold wind coming from nowhere. Then the voice came again, but this time it was clear, like someone was right next to me. "You're mine now." Lily started crying. "She wants us," she sobbed. "She says we live in her house." That hit me like a punch. The house was old, but our parents had bought it years ago. I ran to the living room drawer where my mom kept old papers. I dug through everything until I found the house deed. And in the corner, handwritten, was a note. Previous owner, Agnes Graves, 1987. The last name sent a chill down my spine. Graves. My grandma once told a story about a woman who died on this same street decades ago. A woman people called a witch. Lily looked at me, pale. "She's here," she whispered. The temperature in the room dropped. In the hallway mirror, a figure appeared. A thin woman with gray hair and sunken eyes. She didn't move. She just smiled. A wide, toothless grin that didn't reach her eyes. "You remember," the voice hissed. "Good. Now you know the price." The basement door, always locked, burst open with a crash. A smell of mildew and something worse, rotten meat, filled the air. Lily grabbed my hand. "We're not going down there," she cried. But we didn't have a choice. Something pulled us. Not a hand, not the wind. It was like the floor tilted and we slid straight into the basement. The last thing I saw before the door slammed shut was the woman standing at the top of the stairs, watching us fall into the darkness. And then, silence. When we woke up, it was morning. Our parents were standing over us in the backyard, the basement door wide open, our clothes covered in dirt. And on the ground, buried near the door, was a bundle wrapped in black cloth. My mom unwrapped it with shaking hands. Inside were a bunch of things: a ragged cloth doll, old photos with burned edges, and a yellowed piece of paper with a single word: forgiven. We never heard the laughter again. We never saw the shadow. But to this day, when I walk down the hallway at night, I hold my breath just in case. Because some things don't leave. They just wait. Bizarre. Sometimes a single glance is all it takes to open doors that should have stayed shut forever. But what happens when it's no longer something you see while you're awake? What happens when it starts showing up in your dreams? The story you're about to hear will show you exactly that. And it's a lot more real than you might think. But before we get into it, if you've made it this far, it means you're enjoying these stories. So hit the like button to let YouTube know you love this kind of content and never miss another horror story. The first time I saw her eyes, I knew something was off. Not the kind of thing you can just brush aside, you know? Those yellow, almost golden eyes seemed to see right through me, like they were digging into every corner of my soul, and didn't like what they found. My ex Connor started dating this woman Maeve just a few weeks after we broke up. And honestly, I didn't care at first. But then things started getting weird. She lived in this old stone house on the outskirts of Galway, the kind that looks like it's whispering secrets when the wind blows. Connor mentioned, almost in passing, that she had cats, lots of them. But then they started disappearing, or rather they started turning up dead. No blood, no marks, just empty. Like something had sucked the life right out of them from the inside. I tried not to think about it. After all, it wasn't my problem anymore, right? But then the dreams started. It was a stormy night, the kind where the wind howls and the windows rattle like something's trying to get in. I dreamed about her. Maeve was standing in my room, but it wasn't her. Not really. She was taller, her black hair writhing like snakes. She didn't speak, just smiled. A smile too wide, full of sharp teeth. Then she reached out her hand, like she was offering me something. I jolted awake, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. The house was silent, but I knew something was wrong. The air felt thick, heavy, like the calm before a storm. The next day I told my mom. She's always been the most skeptical person I know. But when I described the dream, her face went pale. "You're not the first in this family to dream about her," she said quietly. Then she started telling me things I'd never heard before. Stories about our family, about women who saw things, about premonitions that came true, about a curse that seemed to follow us. I laughed at first. A curse? Seriously? But that same night, I saw her. I was staring out my bedroom window trying to figure out why I couldn't sleep, when something moved on the neighbor's roof. It wasn't a cat, it wasn't a bird. It was something. An owl, but not. It had the body of a bird, but it was too big, too wrong. And its face, God, its face was almost human. Huge black eyes and a smile. The same smile from my dream. I froze. It, because it was a she, I could feel it, turned its head slowly, like it knew I was there. Then without rushing, it spread its wings. They weren't feathers. They were dark, almost leathery, and when it moved, the sound wasn't like wings. It was like something dragging. I screamed. I called for my mom. By the time she got to my room, I was huddled in the corner, pointing at the window. "Did you see it?" I asked, my voice shaking. My mom looked outside, then back at me. "What did you see?" I knew she'd seen it too. She just didn't want to admit it. Then, outside on the roof, something started scratching. The sound of claws, long, sharp claws against the wood. Someone, or something, was up there. Connor, who'd been crashing on the couch after a fight with Maeve, woke up and went outside to check. "Probably just an animal," he said. But when he came back, his eyes were wide with fear. "There's nothing there." But I knew, and my mom knew too. That thing was connected to Maeve, and the dream. It wasn't just a dream, it was a warning. And the worst part? I had no idea what was coming next. That night I couldn't close my eyes. Every sound made me jump. The creaking floorboards, the wind rattling the windows. Even my own breathing seemed too loud. My mom stayed with me, whispering old Irish prayers, the kind I only heard at funerals. But even those didn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. Connor, stubborn as ever, insisted we were imagining things. Maeve's eccentric, but she's not a witch, he said, like that settled it. But the next day, he showed up at my door, pale as a ghost. She's gone, he said, his hands shaking. I went there today, and the house, it's not there anymore. I thought he'd been drinking. But when we went to where her house should have been, there was nothing. Just an empty lot, with patches of grass burned in perfect circles. And in the middle, one thing. A bracelet Maeve always wore, made of little white bones. Cat bones, I realized. My stomach turned. That's when my mom decided to tell me the rest. This woman isn't new to our family, she admitted, her eyes filled with a fear I'd never seen before. My grandmother used to talk about a creature that came in dreams, that stole the souls of animals, and then people. She called it the cat witch. A chill ran down my spine, because in my dream, Maeve wasn't just watching me. She was offering me something, and now I had to wonder, what did she want in return? That night, the noise on the roof came back. Only this time, it was louder, heavier, like whatever was up there was pacing, looking for a way in. My mom lit every candle she had, while I clutched a crucifix I barely believed in. But now it felt like the only thing standing between us and whatever was out there. Then I heard it. Scratch. Scratch. Pause. Like it was knocking. She wants an answer, my mom whispered. Did you take something from her in the dream? I shook my head, but then I remembered. In the dream, Maeve reached out her hand, and I almost touched it. Almost. That was enough. Suddenly the noise stopped, a silence so thick it hurt my ears, and then, bam! Something hit the window. I screamed. Connor jumped up from the couch, holding a kitchen knife like it would help. But when we looked, there was nothing there. Just the dark night, and a single piece of paper stuck to the glass soaked from the rain. With trembling fingers, I opened the window and pulled it off. It was a drawing. A symbol. 2 circles intertwined, with a mark in the middle that looked like a cat's paw print. My mom grabbed my arm. It's a pact, she said. She's marked you. That night never ended. Or at least, that's how it feels. Because now, every time I close my eyes, I see that toothy smile. And worse, sometimes when I wake up, there are marks on my bedroom floor. Like paw prints. Terrifying. What did you think of the story? From 0 to 10, what's your rating? Leave your opinion in the comments. That sound woke me up. It wasn't the rain pounding on the roof or the wind rattling the trees outside. It was something closer. A wet, dragging noise like someone had just stepped in a puddle right next to my bed. But I was alone. I live on a property out in South Africa. 2 old houses connected by a narrow hallway, the kind you rush through because the light never quite works. That night, the storm had knocked out the power, and I had to go to the main house to grab some candles. No way around it. I had to face that damp, shadowy hallway in the dark. I grabbed my phone, its dim screen barely lighting up 3 steps ahead. The hallway smelled of mildew and wet earth, and every footstep echoed like something was walking right beside me. The back door, the one I always kept locked, was open. Not wide, just enough to slip a hand through. Or something small. I stood still, listening to the rain outside. The wind made the door creak, and that's when I felt it. Something cold and wet brushed against my leg. Too fast to be a rat. It was slimy, like it had just crawled out of a river. I jumped back, nearly dropping my phone, and the light flickered across the floor. Nothing. Just the damp concrete. But I felt it. It wasn't my imagination. That thing had touched me, and now my leg burned like it had been licked by something not made of flesh. I ran. Didn't think, didn't look back, just slammed the main house door shut and pressed my back against it, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. The night was long. Every noise made me jump. Every drip of water sounded like it was coming from inside the house. When the sun finally came up, I was exhausted but relieved. Until I looked at my leg. A red mark, the size of a coin, swollen and hot. It looked like a burn, but it pulsed. And when I touched it, I swore I heard a whisper from some empty corner of the room. That's when I started digging. It wasn't a spider bite, not an allergy. Someone in a local forum mentioned a word that sent a chill down my spine: tokoloshe. They say it's a water spirit, small, always wet, and it can turn invisible if it wants. It slips into houses when doors are open, literally or metaphorically, and worse, whoever it touches gets sick. Not the flu, not a fever, something that comes from within, like it planted a seed of darkness in your blood. I didn't know if I believed it. But the mark on my leg itched more every day, and the house wasn't quiet anymore. At night I heard breathing from the dark hallway, and this time it wasn't mine. The mark didn't heal, it got worse. In 3 days, that red spot turned into an open wound, like something was trying to claw its way out from under my skin. And the worst part? I could feel it move. Sometimes it throbbed like a tiny heartbeat beneath the flesh. I went looking for answers. Not at the hospital. Something told me no doctor would understand this. But in the places where people still talk about the things the city forgot. An old vendor at the market gave me a sideways look when I mentioned the tokoloshe. "If it touched you, you're already marked," he said, lowering his voice, "and it won't leave on its own." I asked how to get rid of it. The man laughed, but it wasn't from joy. It was the bitter laugh of someone who's seen too much. "You've got to be smarter than it. Tokoloshe loves the dark, open doors, and fear. The more you're afraid, the stronger it gets." I went home determined. If it was a game of wits, I'd play. I researched old rituals, coarse salt in the corners, mirrors facing the doors, wind chimes to break the silence it loved. I set it all up, even left an offering of milk and honey in the hallway like I'd read in one of the legends. The first night, nothing, just the wind swaying the chimes. The second night, I woke up to the sound of something falling in the kitchen. When I checked, the bowl of milk was overturned but not spilled. Something had drunk every last drop. And then, on the third night, it appeared. I was almost asleep when I heard it. Wet footsteps, slow, coming from the hallway. This time I didn't run. I stayed still, holding my breath. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, and through the crack, I saw it, small, not even a meter tall. Dark, glistening skin like it was always covered in mud. The eyes, God, the eyes, were huge, too black, and they reflected the light all wrong. It stood there staring at me, and I swear the wound on my leg burned, like it was calling to me. Then it smiled. It wasn't a human smile. Its mouth stretched too wide, full of sharp teeth. And then, it was gone. Didn't run, didn't turn to smoke, just wasn't there anymore. But I knew it was still in the house. Now, every night is the same. I lock all the doors, turn on every light, but there's always a dark corner where it could be. The wound on my leg won't heal, and sometimes in the dead of night, I hear laughter. The tokoloshe isn't leaving, and I don't know what to do anymore, and if you've stayed with me until now, it's probably because you also feel there's something in this world we just can't explain, right? So type the word witch in the comments so I know who the brave ones are who stick it out to the very end. And while you're at it, make sure to subscribe, because here you'll always find true accounts, supernatural encounters, and stories that send shivers down your spine. Oh, and don't forget to hit the like button, because it tells me this kind of content is right up your alley. And don't stop here. There's a video right next to this one with even more stories like these. Click it and keep going with me there.